Again, I'm super excited about hearing from our next speaker. I think farmers and ranchers as a whole do a lot of really good things, and they do a lot of things right. One of the things I've noticed during my career is maybe they fall short a little bit on the marketing side, and this is where I think the rank and file farmer and rancher really needs some assistance. And we've teamed up with a company called PenCo, and we're going to hear from them in terms of giving us some tips and secrets on how to better market Wagyu cattle. And the owner is with us today. I want to introduce and let's welcome Mr. Kyler Penland to the stage. Kyler?
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone. So thank you, Jerry, for the kind words and introduction. My name's Kyler Penland. I have been filming in the agriculture industry for a little over a decade now. I got started at the American Angus Association, where I met Jerry as a video editor. Got to work on a couple different documentaries and got to field produce a bunch of neat short packages with them. I since then moved, I worked in the swine industry as a media specialist and training developer for Seaboard Triumph Foods. And I really fell in love with the agriculture industry. I kind of grew up adjacent to it. You know, I went to my uncle's chicken farm every summer and helped clean out pens or clean out the barns. And I learned real quick that I wanted nothing to do with chickens. But he also had 30 head of Angus that I would spend all evening taking photos during sunsets. And that kind of was foreshadowing for what I would find in life and my purpose. I really love telling stories at the root of it. That's what my job is to tell stories. And you guys, the producers, the farmers, the ranchers, your guys' stories are incredible. I feel very lucky to be able to go out to these operations and see your farm, your ranch, get to see amazing different places all over the nation. Jerry asked if I would come up and speak a little bit about marketing to the consumer. What I've noticed over my decade of editing and making content, what the consumer likes to see and likes to hear about. Consumers want to know that their money is going further. Especially nowadays, everything's getting so expensive. The easiest way to do that is to build trust in your product and your operation, because they're not just buying beef; they're buying that trust. They're buying the story. They want to know that that your beef was raised humanely. And Wagyu is a premium product. The story behind it is just as important as the marbling that's on that plate or that's on that grill. So getting into your story is one of the easiest ways to build that trust with visual storytelling. What we like to do, my company, when we first meet with a potential client or customer, we do what we call a needs analysis meeting, where we go in and we figure out what your operation or your business's pain points are, and we try to figure out what type of services we could do to solve those issues. My company does a little bit of everything in the media realm: video production, photography, graphic design. We build websites, we design social media strategies, but everything's custom tailored to the individual business because every business is different. So in that meeting, we find out what your do's and don'ts are. What do you not ever want to show on social media or on your website? A lot of operations will say, well, obviously we don't want to show any dead animals or any animals in water, just standing in water, because that could let the consumer think, oh, maybe there's foot rot, or they're going to the bathroom in the water and then they're drinking it. It's just little stuff like that throughout my years working with clients like Certified Angus Beef and American Wagyu and others that we've just kind of learned to weed out of the editing process. Consumers want to know that your animals are taken care of. So that's where animal welfare and husbandry comes in. The easiest way to do that is with video of your operation, clean pens, a nice looking pasture, fences not torn apart. One thing that I've seen work really well in this industry is testimonials. So getting your customers to talk about your beef and how great it tastes and the eating experience that they've gathered from that goes a very long way. And that kind of goes right into user-generated content. And that's huge right now on social media. Having other influencers use your product, reach out to their audience that they've already generated, might be tens of thousands or a few hundred. That's more people than you've had in that's 100 more people than that was in your network seeing your beef on a plate. Another thing that I would say is a trend that I've seen lately is using technology a little more efficiently. Like Sheila was talking about putting a QR code on the label. If you can't do that with the verified authentic programs, having QR codes other places. You can put them on flyers and hand them out at trade shows. You can put them on your website. You can put them on videos that play in commercials or on social media. With Instagram and Facebook and YouTube now, it's real easy to set up those links to swipe up and it goes directly to your shop. So I think utilizing technology is a big thing for this industry, and not be afraid of it. This is tips and tricks. One thing I would say is with marketing and with messaging is, and what I've noticed from consumers here lately is avoiding buzzwords. Certain buzzwords like natural or humane or sustainable. A lot of consumers are becoming blind to those words. They see them so much, they've become so prevalent across all sorts of different styles of marketing. You really need to dive in and tell your story and tell what separates you from the others out there, because there's tons. So my company works hand in hand in collaboration with a lot of different ranchers and operators across the nation. Sometimes to cut costs, they'll film content on their cell phones and send it to us, and we'll edit it. That saves us from traveling and going out there and upping each individual production day's cost. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what you guys could do with just your cell phones. Most cell phones nowadays are filming in 4K. That's plenty resolution. That's plenty quality to tell your story. You don't have to have the best equipment out there. And yeah, we have equipment all over. It's really fun to play with, but cell phones are getting so good nowadays. One thing I would say is if you are going to go out with your cell phone and film at your own operation, I would just try to avoid shaky footage. A $30 tripod goes a long way. And if you don't have a tripod available, I'm sure some of you have fence posts you could lean up on and set the camera on. And then, sound is 50% of your product with video. You have audio and you have video. Audio being 50% of your sound. I can't tell you how many times I've been scrolling through Instagram or TikTok or Facebook and a video starts and it's just static and it's the sound quality is not there. I'll skip it immediately. Nothing will get me away from that video faster than bad sound. Adjusting your phone settings, if you are going to go out with your phone, default, at least for iPhones, the default settings are going to show up as 720p, and that's barely HD nowadays. You got to go in to the settings and change it to 4K. If you're filming, a cattle drive, if you're moving cattle and you want to get some shots on your phone, knock that thing up to what's called there's frames per second. And in your phone, you can change it to, most of them nowadays can do 60 frames per second. So that's 60 individual images inside 1 second that creates the motion of the video. The higher the frames per second, the smoother that motion's going to be, the smoother the cattle look. It's not going to start looking choppy or anything like that. Be aware of your light. If you're going to film your cattle, a lot of Wagyu are black. If you're filming with the sun behind them, that it's just going to be a silhouette. You're not going to be able to see any detail. Those blacks are going to be crushed. Turn around and have the light on the broadside of the cow. It just makes a big difference. And another thing is just have a wipe ready and clean the lens. There's a lot of user-submitted content that we get from people that the camera's foggy and we can't do anything with it because it's not a clean image. There's different times to use horizontal and vertical. It really depends on where you're making or where you're publishing this content. Verticals are going to be for your social media reels, your shorts, your stories, the TikTok, that's all vertical. You can film horizontally and squish that in or zoom it in to fill a vertical frame, but it's going to look different. If you're framing for vertical and producing a vertical video, it's going to look way better. And with your phone, there's an ability you can use that's locking exposure and locking your focus. So if you just tap and hold down on that screen, it'll lock where your focus is. It'll lock what your exposure is at. And that saves in just auto adjusting whenever you're filming. If you're moving around, like if I was filming over here and then I moved my camera over here, it's going to adjust for that light unless I locked it in. If you're filming out on the ranch, the best light during the day is sunrise and sunset. That's what we call golden hour. It's beautiful. When we go out to a ranch, we try to always stay there for at least one sunset and one sunrise. If we're doing interviews, we'll go inside and do interviews during the harsh part of the day. So like 10 a.m. to about 3 or 4 p.m. We'll try to be inside, whether that's a barn or someone's house or filming lunch. We'll just try to avoid that harsh midday sun. And I tell everyone, if you're going to be filming, film in sequences, build a sequence. You have wide angle, medium shots, and close-up shots. We use wide shots to establish where you're at, establish your location, get shots of your landscape. We use medium shots for people and cattle, and we use close-ups to show the detail, show the searing of the steak, show the feed going into the bunk. We try to record natural sound everywhere we go because every ranch sounds different. Every ranch in operation has its own soundscape. You hear the trucks, you hear the birds, the wind. All that is unique to your location. That helps tell your story and build your brand and separate yourself from other people. And lastly, just keep it short. If you're sending your footage to an editor or if you're editing it yourself, there's nothing wrong with filming, a minute, 2 minute long piece, but you're gonna have to go through that and cut what you want out. If you do that beforehand, it saves you time on the back end. So film in 10 to 20 second spurts if it's just B-roll. Now, if you're doing an interview, obviously film however long you need to get your point across. But as far as B-roll, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it. So I try to overshoot so we can leave stuff on the editing room floor. And then that's content you can use throughout the rest of your year. What kind of separates my company apart from others in this industry is, we'll go out for a day and a half or 2 days, and we'll gather enough content to create social media reels, presentation videos, whatever we found were the pain points. But we'll create enough content to last, at least 6 months, whether that's a reel a week or it's photography or it's product photography. The options are endless, and if you're gonna spend the money and have someone come out to your ranch, give them the opportunity to gather that content. If you're doing it yourself, show the faces, the hands, the boots, show the real life ranch lifestyle. That's what consumers want to see. Yellowstone is huge right now, and this industry that you guys are in, people want to know what it's like to live it. So show them, and that's only going to help build your brand. Capture behind the scenes imagery, feeding the bunks, filling up the feed trucks, checking water, moving cattle. Like, these are all things that people want to see, because it, again, builds trust. It shows that you're real people behind these animals that are helping feed the world. Like, that's the one thing that I love about this industry is people love beef. Like, it's the main center protein on the plate. Like, I have never heard someone say, let's go celebrate with some chicken. But I tell you, my 8-year-old son knows what Wagyu is and will ask for it on his birthday. So I just got off a FaceTime call with him earlier, and he asked if I could bring some back. And another thing, if you're out filming for yourself or your own operation, highlight what events you're a part of. Make social media reels that you're at these types of convention, you're with industry leaders, you're with like-minded people, you're sharing and gaining this knowledge. It goes back to showing that your brand and your operation is ran by real people, and that's going to do more for your image than anything else. If you're working with ag media agencies like PenCo and others, there's tons out there. Not all videographers and photographers are created equal. I've spent a decade in this industry. I've gone through BQA certifications. I've gone through Masters of Beef Advocacy to learn how to better act around these cattle. The last thing I want to do is to get into a pen and spook a cow and ruin your guys' investment, your guys' livelihood. I don't want to throw a drone up in the air and scare an entire herd and cause a stampede and have some of them run into a fence. That's absolutely the last thing I want to do. Calm animals make better videos, and calmer animals, less stress is better beef. I mean, that's scientific. We know that. Ag media agencies know where to stand. They know how to move. They know what shots matter. They speak your guys' language. And I think that's probably the biggest part of it all, is we've been around it. We know what you're talking about. We know, we'll go do an interview and we'll hear your answers to the questions that we've come up with together. But then we can go out and gather the B-roll, what we call B-roll, to put over those interviews to help show what you guys are talking about. Because ultimately, the viewer, the consumer, understand information. If once you tell someone and show them, the retention goes way up. A team that can speak beef will help position your brand as a premium and not as a gimmick. So I think that's where ag media agencies really come apart. And if you're working together, these are just some tips. I know it's a lot of text. I'm not going to read through all of this. But again, just clarify your goals. Clarify what you're wanting the product to do. If you're wanting to up your sales, we can develop projects and videos and strategies to do that. If you're wanting more brand awareness, if you're wanting traffic to your website, these are all goals, achievable goals that we can direct projects towards. Share information with whatever agency you're working with. Your herd size, where your property line ends and starts, where they can go, where you don't want them to film. Highlight what makes your cattle operation different, whether it's feed practices, genetics, or family history. Every story is different. Every operation is different. Tell it. That's what people want to know. And then work together. I pride myself in being a very collaborative person and trying to generate a very collaborative work environment for my employees. There's not a video that we make that doesn't have everyone's input in it, because everyone has a different perspective. Everyone has different ideas. And once you get those together, that's when the magic happens. Maximize results, basically just meaning knowing your audience, like knowing how to target those products to those people the best way possible. And the easiest way to do that is just open communication with your videographers, with your photographers, with your graphic designers. One thing about that in communication is developing a brand standards. I don't have that anywhere on here, but what I mean by brand standards is if you have an operation or a business, know what fonts you're using and stick to those. I hate opening a document from someone and there's 6 different fonts and it's distracting. Know what colors you're using, know when to use them, what types of logos you have, whether you have a letterhead, illustrate that out for people, create a media kit that you can send to media outlets. So this is how you use my logo. This is how you use our font, and when to use a transparent logo versus a colored background. This is when you can overlay it. These are all things that we help our clients line out. We're at booth 30. Please feel free to come by. And we have a video playing nonstop. It's just on a loop. It shows a little bit of what we've done for the Wagyu Association. I feel very privileged to be up here and sharing the stage with some of the amazing communicators that have been here this week. I really appreciate what the association and Jerry and everyone has done and just how open you guys are to us being here. If you have any questions at all, I'd be more than happy to answer them. No? Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you. It was my pleasure.